I spent all my working life in universities. I'm in origin an archaeologist, but I got interested in adult education, lifelong learning, and those issues as well, because I had so many, quote, mature, unquote, students volunteering on my digs or joining courses. But then the education side of it developed. I got really interested in that, and I got very interested in public engagement. Archaeology is a good subject for communicating to and with the public. And in that period, as I got more into university senior management, I was also very much exploring the academic side of public engagement. And in that context, when I was at Bristol, I was centrally involved in writing the bid which set up the NCCPE in the first place, the coordinating centre, in other words. That was an exciting time. A few years later, unfortunately, when I was at the University of Gloucestershire, I had brain hemorrhage, a hemorrhagic stroke, and that caused me to retire. I often wonder whether retiring was the right thing to do. It left me, well, cognitively, I hope it's still me, but I'm in a wheelchair as I talk to you. I'm quite physically immobilized. I can move one arm around and one leg, I can hobble a bit, but I'm pretty incapacitated in that sense. So it's been quite interesting that all this happened in the digital age. I was able to use my iPad in hospital and carry on communicating. But there we are. And following that, actually, I did go back into university life. I was for a while the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the new University of Gibraltar, which was being set up. And I got very involved in Bristol Health Partners and national committees like NICE, working on stroke recovery pathways and guidelines. So that led me into a situation where I found I'd got really interested in public involvement. And this is a confusion that in universities we call it public engagement. In health and medical areas, it's public involvement or public and patient involvement. There are tribal issues, and I found them quite difficult to deal with, but also fascinating to deal with. But now I think we've got a real opportunity to bring these together. I think it really matters. And it feels good to be doing something that makes a difference after all that's happened to me, and a feeling that maybe I was losing my identity because of the stroke. To be able to put something back into the system and feel really useful is a good thing for me personally. And in a more general way, I think it really matters to be part of shaping this national initiative, which, as far as I know, has got no parallel in other countries yet. And it's a fantastic opportunity, which is actually coming to life in a real way. It's because, I mean, in the particular context of research, it's very easy and very natural for academics to do, as it were, blue sky research. And that really matters in particular scientific context. But the minute you start getting into areas which are more about care, more about what happens in the community, then it's absolutely vital, I would say, to include people who've actually lived through these experiences. And unfortunately, I have become an expert by experience in a subject I wish I didn't have to be an expert by experience in, but there you go. And I've several times found myself saying to clinicians, well, just stop a minute. How would you feel if you were in my position and somebody was asking these questions? And they'll look at me, and some of them get it immediately and say, oh, it's not actually very relevant to real life, is it? And sometimes I have to explain it. And sometimes I'm talking to early career researchers who are struggling to find a justification for things, struggling sometimes with heads of department who will say, oh, well, how does that fit with your career development or our department's particular needs? And for them to be able to say in reply, well, actually, involving patient representatives, involving people with lived experience, experts by experience, is going to make my research better. It's going to make the outcomes more relevant. The impact will be vastly greater than it would be if this was just an abstract piece of theoretical research. And anyway, I would say, as a researcher, it's really helping me to understand what the big questions are, and developing questions with people with lived experience actually just makes the questions much more pertinent. So the outcomes accordingly are then much more focused, much more relevant to what's needed, and therefore much more impactful. So from a departmental university point of view, this is a fantastic way of improving the impact of what we're doing. And for those who are arguing about value for money and the funding bodies, again, it demonstrates that reality, that concentration on what really matters and what will make life better for people in the future. And that makes universities more important. Medical research has been very much dependent on a kind of set of criteria, most of which are quantitative, and they're about anonymous reporting and large surveys. But as the shared commitment has been developing, it's become very clear to me, and working with NICE, working with NIHR, that it's having the effect that the qualitative side of research is being taken much more seriously, that a much more rounded, holistic approach is becoming possible, which was somewhat frowned upon a few years ago. But it's actually proving fascinating to see that approach to research being more at the center of things. And again, in terms of relevance, well, why wouldn't you want to know more of the qualitative side of the story, so that we're seeing much more use of patient-reported outcomes as a very important tool for working with these subjects. I would like to see this sort of tribal barrier between the medical side and the university typical understanding of public engagement. I'd like to see that broken down a bit. I'd like to think that the dinosaurs who see any sort of patient involvement in medical research as being a box that needs to be ticked because these annoying funders want it there. I'd like to think that I won't anyway, spend so much time talking to people who come along and say, oh, I filled in this form for this research council, and there's this annoying question about public involvement. What am I supposed to do about it? And rather than feeling that they're supposed to do something they don't really want to, if we can move it to a position where they just accept that it's a natural, necessary, and really important part of the research process, that will be fantastic. And I think the fact that it's getting the backing it is from so many important organizations really matters. And I actually been quite surprised. I thought when I was first involved with this, that, oh, it's a lovely idea, but is this kind of cloud cuckoo land? Is it ever going to happen? And to my astonishment, a year down the road, it really is happening.